Hey, hi. In this video, I'm going to show you how to automate unload data from Amazon Redshift serverless to Amazon S3 bucket. As you see in this PPT depicts my demo. Here, I'm going to show you like how we can unload the redundancy data from Amazon Redshift serverless clusters to Amazon S3 bucket, right? So here, Amazon Redshift cluster, which is used for as a data warehousing solution, so basically the cost of data storage here is much bigger in the sense that it will really cost a lot. So in such cases we would look for archiving those, the reporting data, or those, the archive data should be stored in a place where we will have a less cost, right? So in such cases we will generally tend to store those data in Amazon S3 bucket, which is actually less costly as compared to the Amazon Redshift cluster storage, right? So here in my previous video, I have shown you like how you can upload the data or load the data from S3 bucket to Amazon Redshift clusters. Now in this video, I'm going to show you like vice versa, in the sense like how to unload the data which is getting stored in Amazon Redshift serverless clusters to Amazon S3 bucket, right? So the solution which I have identified here is simple, in the sense with using the a simple AWS Lambda, which is scheduled to run once in a periodically, which does actually connects with the Amazon Redshift cluster and does, so basically once it connects, it extracts the data from the Amazon Redshift serverless clusters, and then finally it loads the data into the Amazon S3 bucket. So here we're going to use unload utility that Amazon Redshift cluster gives us to connect or to interact with the, the Amazon Redshift, serverless database, right? So here the solution is simple. We will have an Amazon Redshift serverless cluster setup. To that cluster we will have a AWS Lambda, which is scheduled to run once in a periodic time, which will actually connects to the Amazon Redshift cluster on run, and then actually it extracts the required, the rows from the table, right? And those rows are converted and stored into the Amazon S3 bucket in the form of a specified file format. All right. So that is the in total the solution. How does, I have set up here, and this is how I have achieved the required automations here in the unload operations. Okay. So with that note, I will take you to the my AWS account. So this is my AWS accounts, and currently I'm in Oregon region. Remember that. So I will go to the first one, that is a serverless dashboard. So if you click on the serverless dashboard, so this is where the place you're gonna come actually, right? So here earlier we used to have a dedicated Amazon Redshift cluster, but now it has been changed. Amazon has providing you the Redshift in the form of a serverless type, right? So here to create a the Amazon Redshift serverless cluster, you need to go to the there is a the orange button, that is create work group, right? So I have already created a work group, a namespace and a work group for my clusters. Okay, so my cluster name would be Cloud Quick Labs. If I open this one, so this is all the my data about my the Amazon Redshift serverless cluster that I have created here. To help you to how to create this from your side, I will just quickly walk you through here. So first one, click on the create work group. So here you're going to provide some example work group, for example say test 1 2 3, yeah. And then here you're going to choose the capacity wise, yeah, so you can read more about the capacity, right? And then in the networking security side, you're going to choose the VPC belongs to the region, that is here in the Oregon region, right? So in the Oregon region we have a VPC, and the security groups and respective subnets are being chosen. So here if you want to have enhanced VPC routing, you can tick this mark, yeah. And then we go next actually. So here you need to create a namespace. So namespace is a collection of database objects and the users, so basically as I said, work group is a big container. In that one you can keep it as a small collection of database objects. Okay, and that's the reason you need to give a unique namespace here, right? So for example say test 1 2 3, again let me give like this, and here database name, that is the root username, and password has to be given here. So by default a database name created is dev, right? So underneath that we will have a username and password to connect to the database. So here it can generate the password, username and password automatically, or you can overwrite and create your own username. For example, say XYZ as a username, and you can let this service to create the password on its own, or you can manually enter the password. So for example, say let me manually enter the password, something like this, yeah. And then basically it is still in that, so you need to satisfy those criteria. So let me say like test 1 2 3. Okay, so this is my password, super secret password. And then here you need to associate an IAM role. So the IAM role should be a role which is trusted by the Redshift Amazon.com service, right? So I have created a role with the name like ETL Lambda access role, and this role has the admin privilege because since this is a demo, I have given full permission so that it becomes easy for me to demo. In the trust, I have added a trust configurations where it is trusted by, as I said, the Redshift.amazon aws.com. So, okay, this principal service has to be trusted. Okay, then only this role becomes, the qualifies, in the sense that role becomes qualified to be associated with the, while creating the basically while creating the Redshift serverless cluster. Okay, so likewise I have chosen that and click next basically, and that's all. So basically these are the input that you're going to put it, and click on a create button, which will take you to the page something like this. Okay, so in our case, or in my case, I have created a cluster with the name like Cloud Quick Labs. Okay, so if I open this one, so it will take you to page where it will give the metadata about the Redshift serverless page. Okay, so here in the general information, note that we have three important inputs, that is endpoint, JDBC, and ODC. Okay, so in this one we will have the server data, that is the FQDN of the server, that is the Redshift cluster server name. So this is the endpoint server FQDN, and then we have a database name. Okay, so we're gonna use this information in the next steps of this demo, right? Along with that, you can also explore the further configurations of the this cluster, all right, or this setup basically. So here one more thing is, you go to the VPC security. In the network and security, we have these configurations. In that one more important thing that you need to modify is go to the VPC security group, click on that, and make sure that that security group has an inbound rule allowed on the RDS, TCP RDS basically. Yeah, so if I go to the inbound rules of that particular security group, make sure that you have a TCP port 5439 is allowed, which is actually a Redshift TCP port allowed on the internet. Okay, and one more thing, so basically this is what the configuration you need to maintain on a VPC so that it becomes accessible from the the AWS Lambda, which I'm using it for the demo purpose, or which I'm using it for automation demo purpose. And also make sure that this cluster is accessible over the public. Basically, if you are not enabled it, you can do it later case after creation of the cluster as well. Click on edit, right, and there is a tick mark called turn on public access. Why I'm enabling public access, though it is not recommended, because I'm in running that Lambda from the public network, right? So in that case, it does not has access within the VPC. We can do that by integrating the AWS Lambda within the VPC and enabling the VPC endpoint for the storage bucket. But that is enhanced version of the this solution, which I would like to provide as paid services or paid solutions basically. But in this case, it is just how to access the cluster over the public, and does the required job, that is the how to unload it. Okay, that's the reason I'm just demoing the how to access over the public. But if you'd like to have this solution, paid solution from my side, I can help you to enable through the backbone network of the the AWS VPC as well. All right, so these are all the configurations you need to make sure on the the Redshift, Amazon Redshift serverless, which is ready, right? And then next one, we go to the we will also create the the output. Okay, so here our input is Amazon Redshift, the output is Amazon S3 bucket. So for that case, what I do is I will take you to the S3 bucket. So this is my S3 bucket of my account. So I have created an S3 bucket with the name called Redshift-table-2 S3 bucket. Okay, so this bucket is sitting in the Oregon region, nothing but the region where my cluster is also sitting. All right, so this bucket I have created it, and it does not has any objects for now. All right. Okay, so with that, what we do is, let's see if this database has some table and data is already there in the table. To do that, what I do is I'm going to close all the other options, and I'm going to take you to the the database connection basically, right? So this is our as I said, this is the namespace, that is Cloud Quick Labs. Generally, now earlier we used to call it like a node cluster, something like that, in the Amazon Redshift serverless, in the Amazon Redshift previously. But now, since it is Amazon Redshift serverless, they have given a name like unique name like the namespace. So namespace is nothing but one instance of the the serverless, basically you can consider like that. Yeah, and this instance will be accessible over the query data. If you click on the query data button, it will take you to the redirect you to the another page that is something like this. Okay, which looks like pure basically SQL management tool like that. Yeah, so here as you see, the serverless workspace, that is Cloud Quick Labs, which is my instance, is now accessible. and in that one we have a default database called dev. Here you can also create the required the schema database for the table functions could be created on this serverless instance from here as well. So it is possible. All right. So in the now for this demo I'm using my database called dev, and in that one we are using public schema. In the schema, I have also created a table called test, and that table test is been loaded with the plenty of data. So if I can run this query, so we have nearby 299 records. So it has certain columns. If you see here, all the columns are type varchar and certain of int, right? So now what we do is we need to unload this data from the this Redshift serverless to Amazon S3 bucket. Okay, that is our aim. Okay, all right. So now you are convinced that we have setup of Amazon Redshift serverless, and that serverless has some data, right? So that serverless database and table, particular table which you need to unload to Amazon S3 bucket has a certain data. All right. So till that time we are convinced. Okay. So now, okay, with that consideration, let's go to the our important automation component, that is AWS Lambda. So here I'm using AWS Lambda to achieve this scenario. As you know that AWS Lambda is also a PaaS service, and this Lambda is really very less cost, in the sense it is the cost is calculated based on the number of time number of hours that you invoke basically. Yeah. So this is very very recommended solution for any kind of automations. Yeah. So maybe maybe for like prolonged some or intense coding kind of automation, if you need it, then we generally AWS Lambda is being recommended. But in this case also, since I am going through a codic way of unloading the data, then in that case that's the reason I have chosen AWS Lambda. Yeah. And which is really works basically. Yeah. So if I go to the AWS Lambda, what I did is so before you creating the AWS Lambda, you need to have a Lambda layer. So the Lambda layer, so here I'm using PostgreSQL Python module to connect to the the Amazon Redshift serverless cluster, right? And for that case I have created a Lambda layer called PostgreSQL. So the required zip file for this PostgreSQL is also stored in my the basically in my folder. So this folder or this table, basically this is the folder, and it has certain files. It includes the Python file which I'm going to execute in the Lambda. It also has a load query. It also has some example data, so you can use this data as well to load into a database. And then it also has a zip file, which is actually I used to create a PostgreSQL Lambda layer. Okay, so this zip file is also shared in the video's description. You can find these references from my video's descriptions, where I have given the my source code link, that is GitHub link. All right, and we also have an unload query as well. So all these references are meant for your help actually. All right, so with that we go to the Lambda. So this is how I created a Lambda layer, and Lambda layer is compatible to 3.7, 3.8 and 3.9. Remember that this Lambda layer is compatible to 3.7. all right. So we have created this one. Let me go to the function. So I have created a function called unload Redshift cluster. Okay, so once this Lambda layer is once this AWS Lambda has been created, what I did is I have a code called something like this. Okay, so let me open this code. This is the code which I have prepared for it. You can just do a copy and actually so do something like this. Okay, so you go here and do Control V. If I can do again. So here I'm going to copy this code, and then what I do is I'm going to load it into this function. All right, and then click on deploy. All right, so this is what I'm just telling you, like how easy it for you after watching my videos and trying to replicate this configurations from your side. That's the reason I'm going from bit by bit as well. All right, so with that, this is how you can copy paste the code, and code should be working. So I will also walk you through this code. Meantime, let me give a overview about the configurations that I have actually here. All right, so what I do is I will go to the general configurations. In the general configurations, I have maintained certain like timeout equal to 15 minutes. We have a memory, this one. We have a ephemeral storage, something like this. Okay, in the triggers, I have not added the trigger, but this is the place where you can schedule this Lambda to run once in a like periodically, in the sense like say once in a day or once in an hour, once in a 5 hours, something like that, which you can use the event bridge rule and try to trigger this Lambda based on the event. In the permissions, okay, basically here I'm using the the ETL Lambda role. This role is being trusted by the the lambda.amazon aws.com service principal, right? And that's the reason this Lambda is being this Lambda is enabled to run by this access. And then in the destination I have not added anything functional blah blah, you can ignore it. But in the environmental variable, so note that I have added the environmental variable like db name, host name, password and username. Okay, How did I get this information? So if you go to the Redshift cluster and here go to the ODBC URL. So here you see the server name URL is this is the FQDN and this is the database. All right. So those configurations are kept as an environmental variable because you cannot store these configuration in a source code, right? That's the reason it is recommended to keep it as an environmental variable. So we have a DB name, we have a host name here, and then we have the password. This is my super secret password and this is my username. Okay. So these are my root credentials. No worries. I'm going to delete this cluster post this video is been completed. So you don't need to try it from your internet. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go to the code. So I'm going to walk you through the code and then we will see the the magic happening. All right. So what we do is, I'm going to quickly walk you through the code. The code is very simple here. So if I can explain this code, with a very neat manner, right? So here I'm importing the module OS, and we are also importing the PostgreSQL Python module, that is PySock G2 something. I cannot pronounce this one, but so this module is accessible because I have, if I show you, I have attached that Lambda layer. If you go to the Lambda layer and click on this Lambda layer of the Lambda, so we have a PostgreSQL Lambda layer which I've created in the initial. So that Lambda layer has been attached to this Lambda, and henceforth, the PostgreSQL module is importable in this Lambda. And then we have a Lambda layer. We have a Lambda handler. Within the Lambda handler, we are actually, getting the values of the environmental variable, that is of DB name, host, user, and password. In the sense, these values are kept into the Lambda's environmental variable. We are actually referencing from there by using this mechanism, right? That's the reason OS module is being used here. All right. And then these values will be used to connect it to the database. Okay, so how it is happening? This is where the connection variable is been initiated. We are directly hitting the module, that is PostgreSQL module. In that one, we are invoking a function called connect. In that one, we are actually passing the parameter, that is DB name, host name, port name, username, and password. With this information, yes, this module will be able to connect to that particular Redshift serverless connections. Okay. And then once the connection has been done, we will have a print output saying like, hey, connection has been done. Then we are actually, from the connections, we are actually creating a cursor. The cursor is used to query basically the database. Okay. In that case, I'm constructing a query which is using the unload word. In the sense, this unload utility is being given by the AWS document. I went to the AWS document, studied and find out how the syntax of unload utility is all about, right? So you can use unload key, and in that one, in the braces, you can also actually write the query, that is select star from public dev.test. Okay, so if I go to the query, see, I'm using select star from public. This query is been put across in this particular, the particular after unload braces. Okay, then you need to use the word key to in the sense to what, to the basically to a particular path underneath the S3 bucket. So this is my S3 bucket which I have created, and then in that one I'm just creating a path called unload, so that it will be differentiated. And then we are actually giving the test underscore. In the sense, this is just like like a prefix to the files which is about to created in this particular S3 bucket. Okay, so this path can also be made dynamically. So since this is an example, that's the reason I'm just giving it like a static values. But in the real time, in the production, if you need the solution end to end from my side, you can reach to me over the email. I'm going to help you with the dynamic values provided, and also making this Lambda run within the VPC, and also connect to the Redshift serverless with using the backbone VPC connectivity, and also reaching to the S3 bucket over the VPC endpoints. All right, and then we need to, let's go to the next. So here we need to give the IAM role, which is Redshift cluster is using to access the Redshift cluster has been associated with, or this role should have access on the Redshift cluster. So in the sense, I'm using this ETL role because it has a trusted by the Lambda. It also trusted by the Redshift. All right. Okay, so that role is been added. In the sense, the role ARN is been given here, mention, and make sure that you are putting in a single colon, in the sense. Okay, and then here I'm using allow override. So in the sense, allow override, in the sense, if path is already exists, it has a mechanism to create a one more file underneath that. That's the reason allow override is being used. And then output in the form of JSON. So here JSON, I tested for JSON, it works fine. But when I tested for CSV, unfortunately it is not working. But yes, JSON is also very good the file format which you can definitely unload it with using that format. All right, and then we are actually printing the query, and after that after printing the query, I'm just executing the query with using cursor.execute. Once the query is been executed, I'm just connecting the commit. In the sense, commit, the connection is been committed. After commission, connection has been, once the connection.commit function gets executed successfully, which means that the query is executed as expected. All right, and then we are actually closing the cursor. In the sense, whenever you are making a cursor open, you need to close it. That is a best practices. Okay, because with that approach only, the connection to the Amazon Redshift cluster serverless is been will be closed, or else the port will be always opened. Okay, remember that. And then we have a connection close as well. All right, so this is the very basic the code which I have written. Okay, so this way what we are doing is we are actually reading the records from the Redshift serverless and loading that data into the S3 bucket. Okay, so right now if I go to the S3 bucket, it does not has anything. So let's do a test. In the sense, I have created a test event. So what I do is I'm going to trigger this function. Now consider that it is a schedule is happening, and now it is trying to trying to run the code basically. So it is currently doing a test actually. In the sense, we are actually running the code. If you see here, it is currently executing. All right, so I'm gonna go to the basically, yeah, let's go to the output. It is taking some time, but actually it should be running. Okay, here you go. It has run the job successfully. If you see the logs, in the sense, basically request ID is this one, connection has been done, query is this one, query is executed successfully. Wow, everything has been executed successfully. Okay, if you go to the S3 bucket and refresh it, we should see the file path, that is unload. After that, we have a test underscore. If you remember, in the code I have given the path of the the file to be stored in this test underscore. Okay, so after that, what it is doing, it is actually attaching the some unique name and part JSON 0. Okay, and the output, in the sense, the whatever the data present in this in this test table is being retrieved. Okay, so if I close the limit options here and run the full query, in the sense, to retrieve all the records, so we have a 299 records. Okay, that record should be exported now. So I will gonna download this. I'm gonna show you that all the records are being exported as expected. So here the file is been downloaded. If I open this file in the notepad, in the VS code, you see, right? So we have all the records are being downloaded as expected, in the sense, exported as expected. Okay, and here go, we have a 299 records are being uploaded. Okay, now this is what the trick is, right? So now this is one time, it is good, but what about the periodically? So when you are running periodically, you need to do a trick. In the sense, you need to do a coding trick. What is that coding trick? In the sense, whenever you are querying the select start from this one, you can also put a condition, something like where order order. So for example, in this case, the primary key is order, right? So for example, I'm just considering primary key order. Okay, so I'm a primary key order greater than 1, something like that. Yeah, so this is primary key greater than 1. Okay, so if I run, what does this mean? In the sense, it will retrieve the records which are greater than order primary key order underscore ID greater than 1. Okay, so when you are running this query for the first time, you're gonna get what is the last ID of the particular extract. Okay, and that ID could be used here dynamically to periodically extract the unique data and upload the data into the S3 bucket. Okay, so that is something which I am purposefully keeping as a paid solution that I would like to give you. All right, so here paid options available from my side is to make this solution work from the VPC and then help you to use the primary key of the table and just extract the latest data, not the the complete data. In the sense, for example, say for the first stretch you have retrieved 100 records because only 100 records was there in the first stretch. In the second stretch, the records got increased to 150, right? In the sense, the plus 50 records, in the sense, for the second iteration, it should only extract the later plus 50 added records. Okay, so in that case, we need to use a coding trick and try to extract it. All right, so that would be acting as a the extended solution from my side, and that would be a paid. Okay, all right, so with that note, I have shown you the things need to be shown in this video. Finally, a kind request, please do subscribe my channel. That would really encourage me a lot. So with that note, thank you, thanks a lot, and see you in the next video.